When we set out on this journey, it was never about ultimately coming together to merge. We've had quite a rich history in Lincolnshire of the two sort of generic infrastructure organisations working together. We've had joint projects, joint contract, joint service delivery. And it was about August 2023 when the trustees came together and they said, really, we can do three things really. We can continue just to work together and hope that works out for the best. We could look at a full merger. We've obviously got some unique challenges in Lincolnshire, particularly with the size of the county, the rurality, some of the coastal challenges, along with the sort of the urban deprivation we've got as well. So I think at the time they said, let's look at a middle ground. Let's look at how we can work effectively in partnership. The terminology we used in the early days was federation, so have a bit of a federated model similar to what you might have with a GP federation or a schools federation, where we decided that we would adopt that federated approach and have a single management team and chief exec that would operate across the two organisations, try and align and bring together what was working really well. And ultimately, it will just be the staff, delivery staff on the ground that will be employed by two different organisations, but effectively working as one. So that's sort of where we originated from.
So obviously we knew that there was a mayoral authority coming, and therefore I think in terms of funding, our funding comes from the Lincolnshire County Council. So as two CBSs, BCS historically held the contract, and then we worked together in terms of delivering the function across the whole of the county. So I think the intention was set in terms of coming together. I do think the kind of changes in government, in the landscape, obviously had an impact on what we wanted to do. I'm not going to say it had a whole impact, because obviously that was going to come anyway, but actually it was sensible in terms of starting those conversations on how we would work together, knowing that that was coming down the road. And obviously when LGR kind of hit, in terms of what was going to happen then it made sense, obviously, for that was the correct decision to do. It was never a financial decision. It was about making sure that we would be sustainable. So in terms of the work that we were doing across the county, and the fact that our teams were doing such similar things. I mean, we worked again, as Ben has said, on projects and different things, but actually we were working quite similarly in the county. So it was the right decision to explore the fact that we wanted to merge or come together in partnership for the first 2 years, and now obviously exciting in a few days being merged.
I think the model with us coming together was really about making the most of the combined skills and experiences we had within our team. So both in terms of our senior leadership and management team, but also then across the team. In terms of those, the efficiencies of bringing together some of our back office in terms of our systems, for our finance system, our CRMs, it was very much about aligning the systems so that we were doing things in the same way. There was a real commitment and staff wanted to work together. I think sometimes when you see organisations come together for a merger or a partnership, actually sometimes you can see staff pulling in opposite directions. And I think from really for us from day one, actually, where we had joint projects or joint contracts like our social prescribing contracts, which works across the county, staff were already working together quite well as one social prescribing team, even though they're employed by different organisations, because it was one contract that we had to develop our service specification and how we deliver that. We've already had to do that as one. So things like that, where we already had teams working together on the ground, it was very natural with them coming together as well. And as I say, we're only really starting to see the true impact of moving from two IT systems to one, two HR systems to one, finance, etc. That's only, whereas we're now really going through the final bits of the merger. That's, I think, where we're going to see more efficiencies operationally going forward. certainly for those of us that have multiple logins for multiple systems, actually that's where we're going to start to see the real benefits going forward.
Ben talked about the shared SLT as senior leadership team. And I think that for me, that's where it started to really cement in terms of that unity. You talked about being unified. So teams could see that actually, at the time we had 9, we've now got 7 on the SLT. And it was, we were united in terms of the partnership working, and they could see that as well in terms of the passion and the strength and the unity and the resilience across the teams within the SLT. So I think that had a massive impact as well on an already united team just wanting to get on and work together.
So to summarise, sustainability is a key driver for a lot of this. Has there been a moment in the last 2 years where this has really felt like it's come together for you, or has it been more of a gradual, iterative process that's sort of built piece by piece?
It was a beautiful moment back in November when we had a staff day, and we recognised people's long service, and Ben was one of our most longest serving members. But we recognised long service, and we kind of got, in the morning we did the kind of formalities, and in the afternoon we had games and things like that, and people doing crafts and stuff for micro volunteering. And actually, at that point, I could see that it was one team, that, everybody was just laughing and joking together, enjoying dinner together. I know those are very small things, but actually the beauty of people coming together and being one was really demonstrated at that staff day in November.
I think the staff team feel like we've merged a long time ago. As you say, the practicalities and now moving into a single IT system, having a single HR system and things. Last April, we brought together and aligned our terms and conditions. We included staff in lots of consultation opportunities at team days, at team meetings, at the merger consultation group. So we have lots of opportunities for staff to feed in. And I think that helped us get to the point where we are now. And actually the things we're working through now is all of the sort of the wiring in the background in terms of bringing 2 organisations together into one.
So very struck by the way you've described the process of merger there, because what we're seeing quite often is that people spend a huge amount of time thinking about the systems, the organisational form, which trustees are going, which trustees are staying. And I'm not dismissing the importance of any of that. And I'm also not dismissing the complexity and the work involved in IT systems, HR, payroll, and all of that. But the model you're outlining, where actually you bring the people together first and you create one team and you create that culture, and then after that you allow the process to follow, that to me feels like a really important and striking lesson. What prompted that decision, whether that happened organically or whether there was a moment when you realised that that's the way you wanted to approach it?
From the early days, we both recognise the organisation. The strength of our organisations are the people that are delivering the services, and we have very passionate members of staff from both organisations that have been with the organisations for a long time, and actually that will be really key to helping drive this. And I think from day one, we the first thing we said when we had the full team day was actually that we want staff to come up with ideas, with solutions, actually also share anything that they think is going to be a challenge or a concern, so actually we can overcome them. One thing I would say alongside this, and I think sometimes you can see with mergers that trustee boards can be quite protective of their own staffing, their own way of doing things, their own policies and procedures. And our trustees really haven't been that way. It's always been about what is right for the partnership as it has been and the organisation going forward. And I think we've had a joint trustee meetings where we've prepared lots of information and we've been prepared for questions of how will this work? Would it benefit one organisation more than the other? Actually, the trustees they haven't viewed it that way. Actually, it's always been about what's right for the collective going forward, which I think has really helped us get to this point as well. We haven't had to really look at things like that.
We've also been talking to our stakeholders as well, so including our funders, our partners, our key stakeholders and partners that we work with on different projects in terms of, what do you think? How do you think we should be doing things? And in keeping our funders formed all along the way. And that's been really beneficial in terms of their ideas too. I know when we first started out, I thought there's going to be so much storming, but actually there was very little of it. When we were talking about our partnership, people saying the merger, the partnership that isn't a merger. So people would say that because they knew that was going to happen. Yeah.
The one thing I would say that the trustees have always been mindful of, and they've always said from day one that they're mindful that we need to maintain our local presence and local delivery. And so we're in a 2-tier authority with a county council, 7 districts. We've always said that we want to be visible across all of Lincolnshire, and I say that can be a challenge when you look at the lengths we have to travel between our towns, our districts, and the different economies we have. But that's something that we've been mindful of, and certainly going forward, that's something that we're really keen that we want to maintain that local delivery and that local presence. So that has been at the forefront of what we've been trying to achieve here.
And Ben and I have been making sure that we're seen at offices as well. So making sure that staff have the opportunity to be able to, well, right through the process, that they can, that as long as we're visible, or the senior team is visible, that, you know, that they can ask questions. But also we've given them the opportunity to not even speak to us, but to speak to trustees. So if they've wanted to speak to trustees and directors directly, they've also been given that opportunity.
We set a joint trustee working group. So we had 3 representatives from each of the trustees boards that came together and met regularly as a 6th. So they were working with us in terms of progressing the partnership. And then they would take back recommendations and key things to each of the trustee boards. And then we met as a full joint trustee board on a few occasions when we had decisions to make and we had things to consider that required those decisions going forward. So we have quite an active trustee board as well. So the trustees, they come along to some of our team meetings and our team away day as well. So it's not just information they're getting from myself and Batul and the senior team at trustee meetings. Actually, they can see what's going on the ground, and they have that relationship with staff, which I think has really helped through this journey as well. As I say, I think from day one, our trustees have always been mindful that we need to maintain that local presence. I suppose in relationships with our local authorities as well, we've maintained strong relationships strategically. But on the ground, we have local offices that are based within all of our districts, and we also have particularly our social prescribing teams that are out and about in the community day in, day out. They have access to local GP practices, surgeries, mental health team bases as well. So they are very much out in the community. I suppose it takes me back to when we started social prescribing in the first place, when Public Health came to us because they were developing neighbourhood working in Lincolnshire. And they didn't come to us because we had any expertise in health, but they came to us because we were connected to our communities really, really strongly. So it was always about developing a really diverse network of community and voluntary organisations and services that we could support people to access. So pretty much everything we do it is along those lines, really, of making sure that we are really connected to all of those groups and organisations and services on the ground. So I think that's helped in terms of where we are in maintaining that local presence.
It sounds like there's been a lot of natural momentum to the journey that you've been on. Have there been any particularly challenging moments, or have you had to kind of consolidate the staff team at all? How are you coordinating your senior team after the 1st of April? How are the 2 of you and others going to work together at senior leadership level, or is there another plan that's coming?
For me, who's worked as a chief exec for the last 13, 14 years in the sector, I've always sort of been solo, if you like, and I think it certainly it was really apparent to myself and the trustees and the management team that I needed a deputy and some support in the role going forward. So pretty much a year into the partnership, we appointed Batul as the deputy chief exec.
And I think we've really played to our strengths in terms of, I was already on the senior team before I was appointed as deputy. I'm going to say this, I love working for this organisation, and I'm not saying that because Ben's not next to me, but I really genuinely love coming into work. With such a large rural coastal county, and the changes that are happening around us, around Pride in Place, local government organisation, the fact that, you know, the mayor still is quite new in post, that we have been able to kind of divvy up those positioning pieces that we need to across the 7 districts. And so I was originally from LCBS. And kind of have worked in the south of the county, you mostly in kind of Lincoln and north of the county. So actually, we've kind of continued to work in those areas and position ourselves. And I've worked all over the country, come back to Lincolnshire to support my parents, I suppose. And I have a story that Lincolnshire saved me, and therefore I know it's really twee because Lincolnshire did save our family, and because we were refugees, but the passion I have for Lincolnshire is immense, and I want to do the best thing I want to for Lincolnshire.
Our members and organisations that work with us have been really supportive of the journey we've been on, and certainly coming together as one organisation. Lots have said to us, it should have been done sooner. And I think with the county we have, Lincolnshire, we've touched on all of those challenges we have in terms of the sparseness and the urban and rural challenges. That we do have lots of locally based organisations that deliver within a specific geography, but we also have lots of organisations that operate across the county. So previously, those county-wide organisations would have been working with both of us. So actually, it's made things much simpler for those relationships we have with county-wide organisations, that they'd be working with one organisation rather than it being a three-way approach. So I think from that respect, working with our members and partner organisations within the sector, it has been seamless. They've all been really supportive of the process and understand the how and the why. So certainly all positive there. I think something we have been driving forward is VCFSE engagement in the devolution process. We, from the early days, when devolution was being developed for Greater Lincolnshire, we were working with colleagues in the local authorities to provide a platform and a network for the mayor and the mayor's team to work with the community and voluntary sector. So we did quite a lot of work in the lead up. We met with all the mayoral candidates prior to the election to talk about our role as community and voluntary sector organisations, how we the role we play in already working alongside authorities and contribution to the priorities that sit within devolution, and how we would like to support as a sector support this process longer term. So we have a Greater Lincolnshire VCFSE devolution network. So we have organisations that come together, and so we are a network that the Mayoral Combined Authority can work with. And certainly we want to push out news and information and updates to the community and voluntary sector organisations across Greater Lincolnshire to keep them informed and give them opportunities to feed in where they can as well.
That was pretty proactive of us in terms of getting that together. We maintained momentum, haven't we, in terms of making sure that we are coming together to ensure that the Mayor's office knows what we can do brilliantly.
Yeah, and I think moving forward as well, we've very much got an eye as a collective bunch of organisations in the sector, looking at how we can maintain relationships with local authorities as they go through LGR process, and we want to make sure that we can maintain those relationships where there is going to be uncertainty and there is going to be question marks of actually, so we can maintain those relationships and keep the sector informed and contributing to the process. Make sure we involve the staff and stakeholders from the outset, because they've come up with some of the best ideas and the best opportunities and things that we've taken forward, and they've really supported it through this process. It hasn't felt like it's myself and Batul dragging the two organisations together. Actually, I think that's something that we would look back on as a real success of this.
I think one of the successes in terms of positioning ourselves has been around the community transport agenda. So as CPS Lincolnshire, we provide the support and secretariat for the Community Transport Consortium, which didn't exist until 2 years ago. So we brought together the 18 schemes in Lincolnshire. Now it's Greater Lincolnshire, actually, because we've got schemes up in with our colleagues in the north and northeast, to look at community transport being you know, a viable part of the infrastructure, transport infrastructure in Lincolnshire. And as a result of that, I suppose, campaigning in terms of why it is so important, Ben and our transport lead now have a seat on the transport group. So championing that in terms of the rurality and getting people to places is really important for us. Going from the south to on the coast can take 2.5 hours.
I think it's probably fair to say that lots of people within the sector and wider the sector have probably confused devolution and LGR, thinking it's the same thing. And as much as they're very closely aligned, they are very different things. So I think for us, devolution brings lots of opportunities to Greater Lincolnshire, for us as a sector and Greater Lincolnshire as a whole, which I think we need to embrace. Local government reorganisation longer term should provide more sustainability for our local authorities. I think there's probably lots of concern and uncertainty in the short term around what LGR is going to look like. How do we make sure we maintain those relationships that we have at local authority level, whether that's county council level, district council level, or the combined authorities in the north and northeast as well. So I think it's, at the minute, as a sector, it's probably that uncertainty of what it's going to look like and how it may affect some of those organisations on the ground.